China now saying it's not going to be sending some of the rare minerals over to the United States. Some of those are used in things like semiconductors and military equipment.
Gallium, germanium, and antimony all now banned from being sent to America.
China is issuing its next step in the trade war between Washington and Beijing. Earlier this month, President Trump banned tech giant Huawei from doing business with U.S. companies, fearing its technology could be used to spy on the U.S. government.
Now, China, the dominant global supplier of rare earth elements, has escalated its economic influence by imposing new export restrictions on critical materials.
At the height of a war, a Far Eastern general once told his troops, "If you want to find the enemy, look where there is silence." Today, a similar silence looms on the global stage, the kind that comes just before a storm. China has quietly made a significant move. It has tightened control over rare earth elements, the minerals at the core of its strategic reserves. On the surface, it might seem minor. But behind the scenes, the footsteps of a looming geopolitical confrontation are growing louder. So why did China act now? Why is the U.S. alarmed? And how might a new world order be reshaped in the wake of this calculated silence? Let's take a closer look at the escalating power play behind the trade war headlines. The rare earth chessboard. Rare earth elements have emerged as a critical front in the intensifying U.S.-China trade war. In response to additional U.S. tariffs, Beijing announced new export restrictions on these vital materials. This move sent shockwaves through key sectors, especially defense and high technology. On Friday, April 4th, China imposed limits on the export of 7 heavy rare earth elements: samarium, gadolinium, terbium, dysprosium, lutetium, scandium, and yttrium. These elements are essential to a vast array of products, from electric vehicles and smartphones to advanced weapon systems and consumer electronics. The numbers tell a clear story. China produces 70% of the world's rare earths and handles 90% of their processing. In contrast, the U.S. has only one operational rare earth mine and relies heavily on China for refining. Industry giants like Lockheed Martin, Tesla, and Apple depend directly on Chinese supply chains. Strategic silence, strategic strike. Experts say this is no coincidence. The rare earths China has chosen to restrict hit sensitive nodes in the U.S. economy. While not an outright ban, Beijing's licensing limits are causing a de facto bottleneck, complicating global shipments. Ryan Castillo, founder of Atomus Intelligence, notes this will increase demand for rare earths from alternate sources like South Korea and Japan. But outside China, only a handful of countries, such as Myanmar, Laos, and Brazil's yet-to-launch Serra Verde project, have viable production of heavy rare earths. This is why Washington is rattled. While the U.S. does maintain a small strategic reserve, it's far from sufficient for sectors like defense. Companies like RTX, formerly Raytheon, Boeing, Honeywell, and GE have gone quiet, uncertain about future supply. MP Materials, based in Las Vegas, called China's move a wake-up call, a clear indication that the U.S. needs a fully domestic, end-to-end rare earth supply chain to safeguard both its industrial base and national security. Meanwhile, startups like Phoenix Tailings are working to scale up rare earth recycling, hoping to ease dependence. As these dynamics unfold, rare earth-related stocks have become volatile. U.S. rare earth shares surged, while MP Materials took a hit. Companies reliant on Chinese machinery for rare earth processing are growing increasingly concerned about access. Rising tensions and shifting alliances. The situation escalated further on Monday, April 7th, when President Donald Trump warned that if China didn't roll back its retaliatory tariffs, the U.S. would impose an additional 50% tariff. He also declared that all ongoing negotiations with China will be halted, with attention shifting to talks with other nations. These developments highlight not only the economic rivalry between the U.S. and China, but also the fragile intricacies of global supply chains. Rare earths, despite their name, are not actually rare. They're found across the globe. However, their extraction and processing are costly and environmentally harmful. Yet they are indispensable for modern technology, powering everything from smartphones and EV motors to wind turbines and precision weapons. For example, terbium and dysprosium are key to the high-performance magnets used in electric vehicles and renewable energy systems. A disruption in rare earth supplies could ripple across the global tech and energy sectors. A history of dominance. This isn't the first time China has used rare earths as leverage. In 2010, during a diplomatic standoff with Japan, China slashed rare earth exports, demonstrating how these minerals could become powerful geopolitical tools. The recent discovery of 1.15 million tons of new reserves in China's Yunnan province further cements its dominance. How did China gain such an edge? It began in the 1980s when the government backed the emerging rare earth industry with aggressive subsidies and lax environmental rules. Production soared from 8,500 tons in 1985 to 48,000 tons by 1995. In the 90s, Beijing barred foreign companies from mining rare earths independently, instead requiring joint ventures that allowed Chinese firms to absorb foreign technologies. China's most strategic move, however, was its export quota policy. Beginning in 1999, quotas were introduced to favor the export of value-added products over raw ore. In 2010, the quota was slashed by 37%, triggering a rare earth price explosion that stunned global markets. As China expanded its rare earth capabilities, it consolidated its manufacturing dominance in critical components such as magnets used in wind turbines, hybrid vehicles, and a wide range of high-tech products. By 2019, China accounted for more than 42% of global rare earth exports. Major importers included Japan, the United States, the Netherlands, South Korea, and Italy. Among the most exported elements were lanthanum and terbium, with lanthanum being especially crucial for hybrid car batteries. This overwhelming dominance has given Beijing a significant strategic edge in global supply chains. But such dominance hasn't gone unchallenged. In 2012, the U.S., European Union, and Japan filed a complaint with the World Trade Organization, WTO, over China's export restrictions. After losing the case in 2014, China dismantled its rare earth export quota system in 2015, a move that had a major impact on restoring balance in global trade. Since then, China has introduced new reforms in the sector, with a growing focus on environmental protection and operational efficiency. Still, thanks to its early strategic moves, it remains the undisputed leader in the global rare earth market. Rare earths, the hidden front in the U.S. China trade war. The role of critical minerals has become increasingly central in the evolving trade tensions between the U.S. and China. These minerals are no longer just economic assets. They've become strategic weapons. From electronics and renewable energy to defense systems and artificial intelligence, critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, and rare earths are indispensable to modern industries. Any disruption in their supply can send shockwaves through the global economy. As a result, both nations are locked in a race to secure sustainable and independent supply chains. China clearly holds the upper hand. It controls a large portion of the global supply and has a major technological advantage in refining. The United States, meanwhile, is aggressively working to reduce its dependence through a combination of domestic mining projects and international alliances. But the competition isn't just about resources, it's also about technological supremacy. Emerging sectors like 5G, quantum computing, electric vehicles, and AI all rely on these minerals. That means this contest is about shaping the technologies and the balance of power of the future. National security is also a major concern. Washington sees its reliance on China as a strategic vulnerability, while Beijing, in turn, seeks to shield itself from nations it views as geopolitical rivals. Both sides view critical minerals not just as economic commodities, but as tools of geopolitical influence. As the global economy shifts toward clean energy, demand for these minerals is skyrocketing, adding another layer of complexity to the trade war. The U.S. response: building a resilient supply chain. The United States has laid out a multi-pronged strategy to reduce its reliance on China, particularly in sectors vital to clean energy and defense. This includes opening new domestic mines, investing in recycling technologies, and encouraging homegrown production. Efforts to diversify supply chains go beyond U.S. borders. Washington is working closely with allies like Australia, Canada, and several European nations. International initiatives like the Mineral Security Partnership, MSP, and the Quad Critical Minerals Partnership have been launched to coordinate these efforts. Australia, with its vast mineral reserves, has emerged as a key partner. Policy shifts across administrations. Both the Trump and Biden administrations, though ideologically different, pursued similar goals in addressing U.S. dependence on Chinese minerals. Trump-era policies focused on boosting domestic production by relaxing regulations and imposing tariffs on imports. The Biden administration, through measures like Executive Order 14017, the CHIPS and Science Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act, has taken a more structured approach, emphasizing innovation, international cooperation, and clean energy. The Department of Commerce has also crafted a long-term strategy centered around supply chain security, global partnerships, and technological leadership. Programs like Title 17 and the Advanced Technology Vehicles Manufacturing (ATVM) loan program have been redirected to support domestic resource extraction. These shifts mark a determined push to minimize U.S. reliance on Chinese critical minerals. A global movement. The U.S. is not alone. Countries around the world are launching similar initiatives to secure their own mineral supplies. The EU is increasing its domestic capabilities, while nations like Mexico, Indonesia, and Chile are tightening control over their natural resources. This trend underscores the importance of global cooperation. Partnerships, especially with resource-rich developing countries, offer mutual benefits: economic development on one hand and supply security on the other. China's recent restrictions on the export of gallium, germanium, and graphite highlight the urgency of these efforts. In response, the U.S. is doubling down, imposing new tariffs, making strategic investments, and strengthening alliances. A shifting global landscape. All signs point to a new kind of resource conflict, one fought not with armies, but with policies, supply chains, and economic leverage. In line with its long-term goals for energy security and technological independence, the U.S. is taking bold steps to reduce its vulnerability. China's export restrictions on rare earth elements have potential to reshape the global balance of power, not just economically, but also strategically and technologically.